All right, welcome back to the hub. George, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you coming on. George was an MBA classmate of mine, and he has started his own company called SoloSuit. So, George, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about SoloSuit?
Yeah, happy to be here. So I'm George Simons. I'm a co-founder of SoloSuit, and we are closing the justice gap. Every year, like 10 million people get sued for debt in the US. 9 million of them automatically lose their case because they can't figure out how to respond. SoloSuit's changing that. People can come to our web app and respond to their lawsuit in just 15 minutes. And so far, we've helped people protect about $28 million from predatory debt lawsuits.
Wow. So, is this like predatory lawsuits for like they get behind on their credit card payment, or is this someone actively suing them? Just so in case people aren't familiar with like the legal field, like help differentiate a little bit more.
Yeah. So what we do, we help people specifically who are being sued for the debt. So that means that there's actually a lawsuit filed against them for a debt that allegedly they did not pay. Oftentimes, it's like a credit card company.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And does student debt fall into this as well? Like, is there or
Yep.
just any debt?
Yep. Student debt falls into it. Even MBAs could be sued for their past student loans if they're not paid.
All right, interesting. So this is kind of cool because like some of the other entrepreneurs I've have come on the podcast, they're dealing with like they're either buying a small business or they're trying to take like an existing product and disrupt it a little bit. You, like you're the first one that's has a product that is in the legal field, and like we don't really hear a lot about legal tech disruption. I mean, I guess there's LegalZoom. Like,
Yep.
what was it about? Um, I don't know, the MBA program or the JD program that caused you to go into this kind of newer field? And then maybe can you talk about the Utah Sandbox a little bit, just so people know what that is?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of have like a bit of a unique personality in that I like really old things, but also I like really new things. I was
All
like
right,
both. I was
just
both like
nothing in the middle.
yeah. So I was like both drawn to like the practice of law because it's really old.
Yeah.
It's a very like ancient practice. Um, but at the same time, I like innovative technology. And so as I got closer to the practice of law, I just thought, this thing needs to be disrupted. It's really not doing a good job of serving um, Americans. It's also not doing a good job of serving lawyers. It does a disservice to consumers as well as to lawyers. Um, so I saw an opportunity for disruption there. Most specifically, in my first year of law school, I needed an attorney, but I couldn't find one. I bought a bad car.
Mhm.
Like died like 3 days after I bought the car. Um, and I needed an attorney, but I couldn't find an attorney that would take my case. I really like could not hire an attorney. I was like, well, if I am in a building full of attorneys and I can't find an attorney to hire, who else out there can't hire an attorney? And it turns out there's a ton of people. There's a like 80% of all legal needs go unserved by lawyers in America.
And I think a lot of it has to do with like it's costly to like find. It's kind of like finding like a dentist or a doctor or an accountant. I mean, there's like these really skilled professions that they're historically have always been like on a one-on-one. You get to know them face to face, real, but that's hard to scale, and it's hard to like serve those needs. And you're starting to see like with like telemedicine, doctors serving not just one patient, but doing video calls, telemedicine, where all of a sudden his outreach to customers is a lot more than what it used to be. So he can serve a lot more people, reach a lot more people than
Yep.
than they could before. And it feels like same things happening with in the law field as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's there's like economic tension that kind of creates for like a bad situation in law where it's costly to hire an attorney just because oftentimes they're difficult to find
Right.
or difficult to get a hold of. And then also an attorney, they have pretty high uh, costs. They have pretty high costs, so they can't take cases that are low dollar.
Right.
But the majority of legal needs are actually pretty low dollar. So because of that, attorneys can't take most cases because there's not enough money in it for them to pay for their education, to pay for their office, pay for the overhead, pay for their license, etc. So like in this situation, it's not like people that are being, it's a misconception that people that are being sued for debt have no income or even low income. A lot of them are low income and a lot of them don't have any income, but not everybody. Um, Really what happens is that people who are sued for debt, their case is not profitable for an attorney to take. Therefore, an attorney won't take the case even if you can pay them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So like, you're basically saying this is an underserved market,
yeah,
and by applying some technology, some just innovation, you're going to be you're touching a lot of people that haven't been haven't been served before.
that's right. Yep.
Well, it's interesting you talk about this because I have a friend who's in the law profession. He works for, well, I think he just switched jobs. So he worked for a very prestigious law firm, serving, startups, venture funds, private equity funds, really prestigious law firm. And he was saying that he's worried about guys like you because you're kind of undercutting, his market. Yeah, I mean, really high end funds or venture funds, private equity, like the top clients, they'll always have their law people,
Yep.
but it's this underserved community of most people don't, like you said, their law needs are not that high, like they just need some legal advice or some you know some legal direction, and guys like you are totally disrupting the market. So he was very concerned with you know businesses like you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's I can understand that. At the same time, like for us, I don't think attorneys need to be too concerned with us in particular because like we're doing work that attorneys don't do.
Yeah.
Right? There's no attorney that makes his living off of helping people respond to debt collection lawsuits.
Yeah, that's true.
There's hardly even an attorney in the U.S. that will take a case regarding that, just because it's so not profitable for them.
So you're not really taking market share, you're more expanding, you're serving a market that hasn't been served, basically.
Yeah, yeah, we're in a way we're offering even like a new product in a way to a group that has never been served.
Yeah. So a couple of questions. One, how did you validate it? And then two, how did, like, you're a lawyer,
Yeah.
how are you building the tech side of the application? How did you build the app, the website, all the technical aspects of this new product?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So first disclaimer, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer.
Oh,
Nothing I say is legal advice, right?
that's true.
uh,
I guess you
I'm a juris doctor.
okay, there we go. There we go.
JD.
You haven't taken the bar, is what you're
No, I
saying.
haven't taken the bar, right?
There,
I
okay.
graduated
That-
from law
that's
school, haven't taken the bar.
yeah, that's the distinction. Sorry.
Um, so yeah, in regards to like validation, um, it was kind of like an interesting process. I mean, it was a very interesting process for me. So I mean, I came to back to Utah, or I moved to Utah from Hawaii, right? Because I was chilling in Hawaii,
Sorry for
living life.
the first, right?
Mountain biking out in Hawaii was great. And then came to Utah to do my JD MBA. I was pretty interested in like the entrepreneurship scene at BYU.
Mhm.
Even like the dean of the law school was pretty interested in entrepreneurship. So one of the reasons why I was interested in going there. Um, and I pretty much had the mindset that I wanted to come out of this as an entrepreneur with a company that was functioning. And so I got involved with like BYU campus, like the Rollins Center was a great time, lots of competitions. Also the Ballard Center with their social venture program, and the law school that was interested in law and entrepreneurship. Um, And I think my first iteration of the venture was Lobble. The corporation name is still Lobble Inc. Our first product was Lobble. Like the idea was to match people's plain English legal needs with a best legal resource for them.
Mm.
And that was like, I think it was, I made, I think I made mistakes that I see a lot of first time entrepreneurs make. I think the way I think about it is I wanted to make Amazon of 2010 rather than Amazon of 1995.
Mm.
Like I wanted to kind of launch with this thing that did everything. I thought I was like sufficiently making the scope narrow, but actually the scope was just like way too broad.
Gotcha.
So like we wanted people to come to the website and be able to like type in what their problem is, and then use natural language processing to determine what their problem is, basically rate their case, and then connect them with an attorney.
Yep. Yep.
Um, what I found was that it's a complicated business model that requires legal service providers to be interested in that form of innovation.
Yep.
Um, what I found was that legal service providers like attorneys and free legal clinics, they experience some pain, but I don't think they really experience the same kind of pain that like wants them to align with their with potential customers. And then I really found that customers experience the most pain, consumers experience the most pain in the legal industry because they can't get service a lot of the times. So at the same time, I was part of a class at the law school, and we ended up building SoloSuit
Mhm.
because we looked over Utah court data, and we found that the majority of cases in Utah are for debt collection,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
about 90%, it's like over 50% of cases are for debt collection. About 90% of the time, the consumer, the defendant, loses just automatically on default because they can't respond to the case. And about 90% of the time as well, the defendant doesn't have an attorney, probably about 98% of the time.
Right.
Um, and so we just made a web app that allows people to respond to the debt collection lawsuit. We just found, I'd say we kind of intuitively, a lot of it was like just the professor's idea. But I think we kind of intuitively understood that the simplest way to solve this would just be to make a document,
Yeah.
like a document generator. We found from public data, we found the people that were being sued, and we went to their houses. We actually went to their houses, like knocked on their door if they were being sued for debt, and we asked them if they were interested in like using the service. People were, and we then walked them through prototypes and did like some testing with them at their homes. People were very interested. Also, like the press within the legal industry was like very interested and thought it was on point. Um, and we ended up launching. People liked it, but then when I took over the reins of SoloSuit, I found that a pretty small percentage. So we just offered a free document generator. I found that a pretty small percentage of people actually ever filed their document, right? So you have to like generate the document. That's step one. But then step two is actually filing the document with the court.
Yep.
So a lot of people will generate a document and never file it. And I was like, wow. So then I think for me, where the product innovation came in and validation was that we then launched a monetized version. So we kept the free version exactly how it is, exactly the same. But we launched a monetized service where people could pay us to file for them, and they could also pay us to have an attorney review the document and to file for them.
Mhm.
Um, and we did that because I found that filing is a tremendous pain.
Yep. Totally. And you guys also came up with filing to the right court, right? Like you guys, like you're not the software, or you guys don't send it to like a court in Salt Lake when the court's in Provo, kind of thing.
That's right. Yep.
So how was the adoption once you offered the monetized service? Did it did it like jump up quite a bit or?
Yeah, yeah, people love it. Yeah, the conversion rates to the monetized service are high, especially for like a freemium model.
Yeah. And how many, you don't have to disclose this data at all, but if, how many customers have you served currently?
Yep. We've served over 8,000.
8,000. Okay. And then the price of the monetized service, is there just one tier up or is there two tiers?
There's two tiers. The price is fluctuating. Um, but we have the free service where you just generate a document.
Mhm.
We have the standard service where we file it for them. And that's what's at one price. And then we have the premium service where we have an attorney review it and file it for them.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. That kind of structure, I feel like makes a lot of sense. So, so you didn't build. You found someone to help build out all the technical
Yeah,
aspect as well. And then I guess one other thing I want to point out, in case listeners are unaware, Utah has a legal sandbox.
yeah,
Could you maybe talk a little bit about that as
yeah,
well?
for sure, for sure. Yeah, so I'm building out the technology. So I'm we we're one of those success stories of a campus technology, right? Our technology is developed on campus. Um, I think I mean, I've read that it's like a tried and true path. I think some other notable Utah companies where like technology was initially developed on BYU campus.
Yep.
Um,
It's a good place. There's lots of human capital there,
yeah,
lots of connections, lots
yeah,
of resources.
yeah, it totally is. Yep. And so it was developed. So I didn't like, it was developed on campus. Um, and then I've brought on a technical co-founder,
Mhm.
Scott Erickson. He's great. He was a engineer at Amazon Kindle, and brought him over to SoloSuit. I was like a Kindle. I like to think of myself as like a Kindle super user.
Yep.
So I would just give him unsolicited feedback about what I think the Kindle should do.
Well, Amazon's paying the bills over here too. So.
Yeah. Yep. So he came on over to SoloSuit to help us out, and he's doing great. I mean, awesome engineer. Um,
Did you know him before, or did you just kind of reach out to him and it like clicked, and you're like, "Yep, come on over"? Or
yeah, I met him. I'm from Seattle originally, so I met him up in Seattle like
okay,
5 years ago. So we had known each other for a while.
cool, cool.
Um, and yeah, so he builds the app. Like our app is built on Ruby on Rails, which we found is Ruby on Rails. When I say that, like people are like, Ruby on Rails, why are you on that? It's so old. But actually, we find that a lot of technology companies, even like young ones, are on Ruby on Rails still. It's like a pretty mature coding language, which is nice. It has uh, a lot of problems are already solved on Ruby on Rails, so it's good. It's working well for us, um, and so that's going well. And then the Sandbox, Sandbox is good. We are um, talking with the Sandbox folks. It's like an interesting situation. It's kind of like SoloSuit operates, is compliant with regulations as it is right now.
Hmm.
But we're certainly interested in entering the Sandbox to kind of do some things that we aren't able to do currently. The Utah Legal Sandbox is the first legal sandbox in the nation. It's headed up by Justice Hamonis of the Utah Supreme Court. And I think Utah just recognizes that the regulations are problematic, um, and have created like a bad situation for legal services provision in Utah. So they've created a sandbox. It's kind of like, I think it's a pretty common concept within like fintech. A lot of fintech companies operate within regulatory sandboxes, and it just holds back regulation from a company so that company can better serve consumers while being just like watched by a regulatory watchdog still.
Right.
Make sure
It's kind of like take away the letter of the law a little bit, and more you have like just a regulator, like spirit of the law kind of thing. Because a lot of times you're trying to disrupt uh, regulation or like issues regulations are trying to solve, or Yeah, so it's kind of like a free play area basically
Yeah,
in the legal field basically.
that's right. Yep, that's right.
Okay, cool. Cool. Kind of transitioning gears a little bit. So you've raised some money.
Yep.
Uh, how how did I won't say Campus Founders Fund, but my old fund. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, you've had some more I guess uh famous investors, I guess. How did you get a hold of them? How did they find out about you? Like, how did that process go? Like, how did that go?
Yeah. Um, yeah. So we have some investors that we're talking about currently. So our investors currently include Campus Founders Fund, your old fund, great folks. I think they're one of like probably one of the first investors that we pitched. Um,
Well, and that's exactly what they're designed for, right?
yeah,
Is like real early stage student founders. Like, yeah, that's what they do.
yeah, which is great. And then it also includes Kleiner Perkins, which is
This is pretty significant. That's the name that I was thinking about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Kleiner Perkins is a great fund. And honestly, very privileged and like grateful to have them on our cap table. Right, they're like early investors in Amazon, Intuit, etc. And I think they go all the way back to the 70s. Um, so yeah, great fund there. And then we also have the legal tech fund as well on our cap table. So with Kleiner Perkins, um, Scott Erickson, my co-founder, he actually had interned at Kleiner Perkins in the past. Um, and so he connected us with them and we pitched them and they were interested and they decided to invest. It's like a very small investment for their
Yeah.
fund, but they invested in SoloSuit. Very grateful to have them on board. I think they were actually our first investor. I mean, they definitely operate on Silicon Valley time and they were very fast about things. Which is awesome. And then the legal tech fund, they are like an industry specific fund. They're the only fund that invests only in legal technology. And they chose SoloSuit to be their very first investment.
Oh,
So
no.
the first investment of their fund, they are betting on us.
I haven't heard. Are they in Utah, California? Or where are they at?
They are they're based in the East Coast.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Well, it's the one question I had when I heard about the KP investment was there a weird power dynamic? Was it kind of like, well, these guys like they're interested in SoloSuit, or was it more kind of like, hey, no, like we're a great startup too, like we're okay, kind of like pushing back if they wanted to take too much equity or too much control, or was it kind of more like, hey, no, like we want you on board and like we're willing to give up a little bit more than if it had been just another venture fund.
Yeah, I certainly want to talk to that. I'm not like super sure exactly what I can say, what I can't say. I
Yeah,
don't
so,
want to
so
say
it just
too much, of course.
yeah.
I think what I can say about Kleiner is that um, yeah, they're fantastic to work with, and no, it wasn't like we were making. I didn't feel like we were making any kind of
Concessions.
concessions to bring them on board. I think they uh, offered us like a great deal, and I think they're very founder friendly, and I think they understand how I think they understand that doing what's best for the company and uh, kind of like the founders in that regard is probably what's best for them as well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like entrepreneurs could sometimes make that mistake in their eagerness to you know prove or validate the company, like, hey, look at this fund, and then it's like, no,
Yeah,
you want to make sure it's a partnership. You want to make sure that they're looking out for you, and that they got their best, your best interests, and founders' interests are aligned with the funds and the companies, and everybody's interests are aligned, I guess.
yeah. I think I mean just talking on like fundraising generally. Um, I think for us, we are interested in doing what's best for our customers.
Yeah.
We're interested in closing the justice gap. Um, and because we're not like our mission isn't to raise venture capital money.
Yeah.
Mission is to help our customers.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we're in a spot that isn't the same for everybody. We're in a spot where the market opportunity is big enough and the customers need our service bad enough, and there's enough of them that it makes sense for us to raise capital to help those customers, to help more of the customers and also help more of them faster.
Yeah.
So we can get the services out there that they need as quick as possible. And that just makes sense for us. And therefore, we raised money. It wasn't like the other way around. We didn't raise money so then we could go find some market to do something with it. But it really was just trying to help our customers as much as we can.
And I think that totally changes the dynamics, right? It's kind of like, because I mean, there's lots of funds. There's capital is, I don't want to say cheap, but there's so much capital out there, and it totally changes the narrative when it's like, hey, look, we're meeting a need, like we're serving our customers. That's our focus, and like the money, the capital is there just to help scale us, to help basically help. It's just a tool to help scale us, and you don't get all caught up with the fundraising aspect of it, and you stay focused on your customers.
Yeah, and I think I am I'm growth minded. I think I can shout out to like two materials that I think are very helpful. One is The Founder's Dilemma.
Yep.
Great book. Scott Peterson had us read it back in entrepreneurship class, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome book. That, and I think for me, I'm like more growth minded of a founder rather than like control centric.
Yeah.
And then also Wilson Sonsini has the Entrepreneurs Report. Wilson Sonsini law firm out in Silicon Valley. They have something called the Entrepreneurs Report, which is fantastic. They break down the valuations and the terms of all of the venture deals that they do. So the Entrepreneurs Report like shows, that in like the
industry practice.
Yeah, like what the average valuation was for a seed round in 2020.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that.
Really fantastic report. I think like in negotiations, founders would be wise to have an objective standard that they can fall back to for valuations. And that is like the best objective standard I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see it in finance too all the time. Like anytime there's a merger or an acquisition, right? You're always looking at comps, and you can't offer like 7x or 5x on revenue for a tech company if everyone else is getting like a 10x on revenue, or vice versa. It's like it's helpful to have kind of that industry standard so people kind of know like, oh yeah, this is the standard for things. So
yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm kind of wrapping up here. Thanks again for coming out. What's like last question? Like, what's next for SoloSuit? Like, what's the next big step for you guys?
Yeah, next big step. I'd say the next big step is really we're just focusing on hunkering down on helping people respond to these debt collection lawsuits, and we're finding ways to help more people at a lower cost and help them faster and be able to just like file for them even faster. That's honestly like the next big thing for us.
Got it. So more iteration on the product, reaching customers, and make sure customers are aware, and like, refining customer interaction with SoloSuit and solving their needs quicker.
That's right. Yep. That's exactly right. I think it's I think in some ways it's like a tough market to be in. We're in it, but we're gonna really help everybody that's in there, so we can really help close the justice gap and help people get the services they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, George, this was great. Thanks for coming on. We'll have to go mountain biking, or I guess we'll go skiing here soon. So, but a funny story of when I first started the MBA program, we do like a little entrepreneurship retreat with all the entrepreneur people. And I don't know if you remember, but I was like, hey, like there's some mountain biking trails, whoever wants to come. And you came, you were one of them.
We were there. I was huffing up the hill with you. Yeah, it was a great time.
I was right there with you, man. That was a tough trail. That was a tough trail. All
Yeah,
right. Well, thanks, George, coming on. We'll see you around.
yeah, for real. Take care.